Springfield's Talk 104.1. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show, streaming live, KSGF.com. Also, we've got that video stream live from the studio that is on YouTube, Springfield's Talk 104.1. You can find it that way. Did you survive the economic blackout?
I did. Actually,
We barely made it.
I did some shopping. There's a lot of people out for their being in an economic blackout.
It did not seem, well, I don't, the whole point, we're told, was to really send a message showing that who's in charge, but I don't know.
Maybe TJ Maxx wasn't hit. They weren't targeted.
I don't know. Everything seemed pretty normal. Didn't hear about any massive economic meltdowns occurring.
They really showed us.
Yeah. I guess we see who's in charge after all. More meaningless. Just virtue signaling. Perhaps it got overridden by the excitement of virtue signaling by once again switching to the Ukrainian flag as your icon. I mean, like, we're going back to this again. I wonder if, genuinely, people who are all in a kerfluffle over this deal with Trump and J.D. Vance in the Oval Office, what do you want? I'm trying to figure this out. Even the I stand with Ukraine stuff. What does that mean? What? Just like moral support? You really think that makes a big difference over there? I mean, this. You could send money. I know there's a lot of ways to do that. Of course, you could go. We had, even people in the area that have ended up going over there to help fight. I'm just trying to figure out what this "I stand with Ukraine" thing is. Is this supposed to make people feel better over there? Do you think this is what they're doing? They're wondering if random people throughout the Ozarks or the United States are switching their little avatar, their little photo, their little background to. I bet they probably think, well, thank goodness now. I mean, we've been through 3+ years of this meat grinder war with no end in sight, but by gosh, there's a bunch of random Americans that stand behind us.
We feel a whole lot better now.
Losing my husband in the war, it's just all so much better now. Losing my kids in the war, it's just what, I don't know if they even know what they want. Do you want the war to continue? Because that's really what it seems like. I mean, do you want U.S. ground troops there? This is what Zelensky is sort of nudging for in terms of, need a guarantee, need this guarantee. Like, what is he, all of a sudden, we figured out how to make the left as pro-war as possible, and that is to have Donald Trump try and work out peace. You got Zelensky suggesting that we should have ground troops there. And then you got a bunch of people on the left like, yeah, he's the guy we should be listening to. That's the one. I'm going to switch my background colors on social media to the color of their flag and stand behind them the whole way. Or you want to go over there? Or are you wanting peace, but you don't like the way that it's playing out? Because it's playing out as messy as Friday was. A heck of a lot more effectively than it has the past 3 years of nothing but war. We've got a lot of audio, and we've learned a couple of things over the last few days. And that is apparently Zelensky, this is like, by the way, he's over there telling, I think, the BBC, I'm ready to sign this thing now. This will be apparently the 4th time. What has been going on behind the scenes, and one of the reasons that the administration, and it's not just Trump, you notice they're all very frustrated. Anyone, there have been a lot of people in different divisions of our government that have been working with counterparts in order to try to move this forward a little bit at a time and get these meaningful benchmarks done. And when you listen to them, they're all very frustrated. And as they begin to reveal what has been going on behind the scenes, you can understand why they're frustrated. 3 different occasions, Zelensky said, yes, let's sign this thing. He shows up, and then he doesn't sign it. And I'm telling you, for somebody like Trump, who does not like to waste time, this is a very angering thing for him, I'm sure. It reminds me of the first term in which Trump was going to try and work out a deal with North Korea to where they stopped testing their nuclear weapons. They abandoned their nuclear hopes and stopped flying the intercontinental ballistic missiles and, just all of that stuff. And there was a moment in which they, each side, North Korea and the United States, were going to kind of get together, and there were, let's call them homework assignments that the North Koreans were given for this meeting as part of, taking these meaningful steps forward to work out some sort of eventual actual, Trump going and meeting with Kim Jong-un, as that would eventually happen. But when this meeting occurred, the pre-meeting, if you will, North Korea, they did nothing of which they were told were part of the conditions in order to facilitate a more meaningful meeting down the road. And so Trump put the kibosh on it. He was ticked off because they were wasting time. And at the time, I remember, we talked about it, was reported as, this was a huge embarrassing failure. This relationship that Trump is trying to foster in the name of calming North Korea down when it comes to their nuclear weapons, it's all falling apart. Now, I viewed it differently. I viewed it as putting them on notice that Trump is serious. When Trump says, if you want this to happen, and we plan to come together, and these are the things you're going to bring to the table, and these are the things we're going to bring to the table. If you don't bring the things to the table that were part of your assignment, then you're wasting time. This is not how we play. And of course, North Korea got the message, and they began to do their homework, if you will. What happened Friday was similar in nature, and apparently, according to reports, there were a number of Democrats that beforehand were meeting with Zelensky and goading him into blowing this whole thing up. For all of the setup that they were talking about, trying to make it sound as if this was some setup against Zelensky, which that would serve absolutely no purpose whatsoever. I mean, no purpose. Why would Trump do that? That doesn't make any sense. Apparently, the setup, according to sources, was the other way around, in which you had Susan Rice, a couple of elected Democrats, and some others that met with Zelensky ahead of time, and we'll dive into all of that stuff, and convinced him essentially to sabotage things, not knowing that that's what he was actually going to be doing, apparently. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447-KSGF. So quite a bit of audio. There have been other things that did occur over the weekend as well. So we've got weather here in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
Before I do weather, I have something to tell you.
You tell me?
Yes, you.
Okay.
Well, and listeners, too. So, the husband, he has been on deployment for the last 11 months.
What?
Yes, I know. Well, I haven't talked about it on air at
Right.
all. I mean, I've kind of mentioned it in passing, but I haven't really said anything. But the husband, he's been on deployment for the last 11 months. He surprised me and he came home on Saturday.
And you're just now telling me
yes,
this?
Yes, I know. I thought I'll just save it for air.
I kind of wondered if that seemed like the sort of thing that he would do to surprise you like that. So, I'm glad. Did it? What, did he just show up at the house?
Well, yes,
what if he was
did.
trying to catch you? You think it's some romantic gesture, and he's like, I'm going to see if she got another man in her life.
No. Well, I'll tell you what. I looked really cute because I did the women's show out at the the Wilson's Logistics. And then I went home and I put sweatpants on and cleaned the house. So I thought, wow, could you have not done this earlier when I looked really cute?
Well, I got to see what he's been missing for the past year.
Like, oh,
well, good.
Yes.
I'm glad.
I know.
I'm
so
glad
I'm very, very happy. He will be at happy hour.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Yeah, we have happy hour this Friday, 4 to 6, Retro Metro.
That's right. Your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today it'll be mostly cloudy with a high near 62. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms overnight with a low around 51. For your Tuesday, showers and thunderstorms with a high near 61. And looking ahead to Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 41.
Someone texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. What did Zelensky mean when he said, everybody has problems, even you, and that the United States would feel the war in the future? Trump said, Zelensky, you don't know that for sure would happen. Now, I will say, what didn't help the situation is the fact that Zelensky, there were a couple of times when he did not understand what was being said, which English obviously isn't his first language, and there are times that he is able to speak in English, but oftentimes he does rely on a translator, and when you have the sort of cross-talk that was occurring, you can understand how, at times, and he would look off to his translator And, even when Trump said you don't have the cards, and he's like, I'm not playing cards, I think that terminology didn't translate over. Trump, of course, meaning, you don't have leverage here. You need us. But Zelensky could have very well thought that he was, being accused of not taking this seriously, just playing a game. And so there was some mention of possible translation issues, which would make sense. But I do think what Zelensky was trying to say is that, if Russia isn't stopped, then they're going to march through Europe and then take over the world. I mean, I suspect that's what he was trying to say. I don't think most people believe that, given how bogged down both sides are. I mean, this is part of the problem. No one is winning this thing, which is why it continues to go on and on and on and on. And so, for the longest time, one of the concerns, if you will, that was expressed was that once they take Ukraine, then they're going to go for Poland, and they're going to go for here and here and here and here, because that's what Putin has said that he believes should ultimately happen. Well, yes, there is what Putin says, but then there's also what's actually happening. And if we've learned anything, it's that that perhaps the world had a grander vision of the power that Russia had militarily speaking, because this is, again, the problem. Nobody is winning this thing. And it just keeps going on day after day after day after day and year after year at this point. And this is what is... I know different people see this differently. The Trump version or vision of this is that this is not, no one is going to win this thing. Now, if you want to argue that we should commit troops and run Putin out of the areas that they have taken of Ukraine, both during the Obama administration and then the Biden administration, at least you would be arguing for something different. I don't think most people would agree with that. But it's the problem is this just insistence on continuing to do the exact same thing over and over and over again, and then expecting some sort of different outcome to occur. Now, there's so many different areas of this to discuss, but one, I think people need to grow up a little bit. Now, that may seem contrary to the display that was seen on Friday, but guess what? When you have war and people dying, and you have people trying to figure out how to get out of it, sometimes conversations get heated. Now, we'll get into where Zelensky was wrong and what I think Zelensky tried to do, and it was a grave miscalculation on his part, though. As I mentioned earlier, there's increasing reports that Democrats put him up to it, hoping that all of this would blow up in Trump's face, because they would much rather continue to see hundreds of thousands of people die on both sides than they would Trump be, seen as somehow victorious and coming up with a peace deal. But the clutching of pearls, the way Zelensky was treated, grow up. I mean, you can't, on one hand, admire someone as this, strong hero that is, every day willing to sludge forward through this because he will not relent no matter how big the obstacle, but then feel sorry for him because Trump and Vance were mean to him. He's a big boy. I mean, this just, I just can't believe how they grow up. This is war. And this is, at the same time, transparency to a large degree. These are the things that oftentimes happen behind closed doors. And if it were up to Trump and Vance, that conversation is the sort of conversation that was supposed to happen behind closed doors. It was Zelensky that decided all of a sudden to try to take advantage of the cameras being there and essentially try and back Trump into a corner to make some sort of commitment that was not part of the arrangement. But when it really comes down to it, I think people just need to grow up a little bit and understand that these are very serious things, and sometimes there's going to be heated conversations. Sometimes people aren't going to agree. Trump has the goal of ending this thing. Zelensky, frankly, I don't know what his goal is. I mean, I think he wants everything, which I don't blame him for that. But at the same time, you have to look at what's realistic, and that's what Trump does. I heard a number of, people that want to demean Trump. And he just, after all, he's just a reality TV show guy. I mean, that's Trump. I mean, this is the sort of thing that he really likes. He gets off on this sort of thing. Prior, let's not forget, to Trump being on The Apprentice, he was there because of his success in dealing with people, in making deals, the art of the deal, for example. Do you know what Zelensky's job was before he got elected president? Playing a fake president on a TV show. He apparently went to law school, never practiced, decided he wanted to be a comedian instead. His entire adult life has been that of an actor before he became president of the United States. So for those of you who love Zelensky, while at the same time trying to demean Trump as just some sort of entertainer, I think those resumes side by side certainly tell a much different story. We're going to get a quick break in here. We've got traffic coming up as well. Some of the audio, I'll play just, one of the clips that is getting the most circulation from the Oval Office itself, and then some insight from people in the administration who have been privy to what led up to this and why it is that they are so frustrated. And all of this was a self-own, if you will, by Zelensky. I believe, two main components to what led to the Oval Office confrontation. One, it was the recognition by Trump and Vance that after numerous promises by Zelensky he was going to sign this thing, once again he was demonstrating that he was not going. He's wasting their time. Trump is not someone who likes to have his time wasted. But he also, at the same time, tried to use the cameras in order to leverage something out of Trump. What that something is, troops on the ground, it seems like, is what he is gunning for, that the United States dispatch troops, which he should know Trump is never going to do that. But utilizing that moment with the cameras to try and thinking, it amazes me, people that try to tank Trump on in this way. It's like that mayor or that governor of Maine trying to take him on over transgenders in sports, and Zelensky thinking that somehow like Trump is just going to fold to him on this. The Treasury Secretary was on with Laura Ingraham revealing that this wasn't the second or that this was the third time that Zelensky had backed out of this deal.
President Trump sent me there to, again, we were supposed to bring the Ukrainian people closer to the U.S. people, send a strong signal to Russian leadership that they had not only shared values, but now shared economic interest, and also have a strong signal for the American people that their tax dollars were actually going to work. Instead, President Zelensky and I had a very tough 45-minute meeting at a very loud decibel level, and I kept telling him, Mr. President, the purpose of this is to show the Russians there is no daylight between us. And at the end of the meeting, he said, well, I'm not signing this. And I said, at the end of the meeting, I said to him, what do you want to go out and tell the press? I said, because I don't want to go out and show the Russians that there's daylight in between us. And he said, well, I'm going to go out and say I'll sign it in Munich. Then he got to Munich, and he ran into Vice President Vance and Secretary Rubio, very different than Vice President Harris and Secretary Blinken, but he didn't sign the agreement. So finally, we were supposed to have the signing today. It was supposed to be a great day, and this is one of the biggest own goals in diplomatic history.
Well, when you listen to the messaging, incidentally, a lot of this information would not be coming out if it were not for what I believe is the necessary need of this administration to just let it be known what caused all this, what led up to this. But when you listen to whether it's Secretary of State Rubio or the Treasury Secretary or any of these other individuals that in their own capacity were trying to craft this deal, much of it was about making sure Putin knew that there was no daylight between the Ukrainians and the United States. In other words, we're allies. For all of this screaming and yelling and gnashing of teeth and this without giving any example whatsoever that, well, Trump's just, why is he being so nice to Putin? Why is he giving Putin what he wanted? This entire mineral deal, in terms of perception of Putin, was to send the message to Putin that in a meaningful way, not some UN vote that's meaningless, but in a very meaningful way, Ukraine and the United States, economically speaking, are going to be attached at the hip. That's something that this administration has been trying for a significant amount of time now, throughout this duration, to send a message to put Putin on notice. Yet the people who are behind blowing it up are the ones running around acting as if Trump is somehow on the side of Putin in this entire thing. We got more audio coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 62. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms overnight with a low around 51. For your Tuesday, showers and thunderstorms with a high near 61. And looking ahead to Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 41.
All right, I'll play, though, I know many of you have heard it, but just a couple of minutes of the exchange that took place in the Oval Office, and this was after everything was going swimmingly well. This would be the third time Zelensky said that he was going to sign this agreement, and then, of course, trying to use the cameras in order to leverage himself over Trump to get Trump to make security agreements, which would be, committing our military to just mind-boggling to me to watch all these people on the left support military engagement in Ukraine. It's just absolutely insane to me, other than you get right back to Trump derangement syndrome, and Trump wants peace, then the left wants war. Trump doesn't want to commit U.S. men and women to fight in Ukraine. The left wants that security agreement to be there, as obviously does Zelensky. And this is where Zelensky brings this up after he met with a number of elected Democrats who, according to the reports and their own messaging out there, encouraged him to reject this deal.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. It's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
even
entire
today.
Meeting, you said thank
even
you.
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Now, of course, it wasn't long after that Trump kicked him out and then fed his lunch to the staff. Did you see that? Like they had lunch planned and he gave it to the staff. Trump. His explanation here is Zelensky's not ready to do this peace thing. And if you don't have, if with the two sides, if both sides are not willing to work towards it, then you can't have it. This is all part of the point when they keep talking about Trump making concessions to Putin, of which they don't list any. Trump isn't in a position to make concessions to anyone. He is the go-between between the two sides. And thus far, Zelensky is the one who has proven to not be trustworthy. Now, Putin isn't trustworthy either. They keep saying you can't trust Putin. Nobody says you can trust Putin. No one has claimed that. But we also know you can't trust Zelensky. I mean, you've got the Treasury Secretary the week before last, Marco Rubio, telling Catherine Herridge how Zelensky had told he and J.D. Vance, this mineral deal, I'm all behind it. Only the next day to go out and say that he was opposed to it and told that to Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance. I mean, the guy is all over the map. So he can't be trusted any more than Putin can when it comes to this stuff. He's demonstrated that. For all of the talk, and Democrats are pushing this for one reason, unless they just have become pro-war all of a sudden, and because they want to prevent Trump from getting a peace deal. There's no other explanation for this. And there's Molly Hemingway had actually posted out, among other things, Zelensky repeatedly declined opportunities to sign the deal in Kiev and Munich. This is something that we've learned over the weekend, and requested the meeting at the White House. It later came out that Susan Rice and Tony Blinken from the previous administration, along with Victoria Nuland and Alexander Vidman, he is the one that got the whole impeachment thing going. By the way, he's Soviet-born. We're supposed to be really afraid of Russia, except for this guy. They may have been personally advising Zelensky to do the meeting in the way he did, that they recommend him to be hostile and try to goad Trump into blowing up the meeting. Red State reporting Democrats encouraged Zelensky to scoff at a possible peace deal setting up the Oval Office blowout. Democrat Senator Chris Murphy and presumably others encouraged President Zelensky to reject the prospect of a peace deal without so-called security guarantees, a euphemism for American military commitments just before the now infamous Oval Office blowout. As Red State reported, a 40-minute presser between Zelensky and Trump turned sour after the former, who had been antagonistic and dismissive of U.S. concerns throughout the meeting, interjected to interrogate J.D. Vance for the camera. The vice president had mentioned working towards diplomacy, which didn't sit well with the Ukrainian president, and in a move that struck the administration as disrespectful, Zelensky publicly denounced any possibility of a ceasefire that would pause the war with Russia. And this is true. I don't know what he wants. And I don't know what people who are posting I stand with Ukraine want. It's clear what Trump wants. He wants this thing to come to an end. Meanwhile, Democrats are pushing Zelensky to try to get a military commitment out of the United States. That means American lives. That means getting us into a war. Is this really what we want? And by the way, what is a security guarantee? Here's a news flash. Nothing is a guarantee. See, these are how they play with these words. It sounds nice, doesn't it? Well, we need some sort of guarantee that Putin won't invade. Well, you can't ever guarantee that 100%. All you can do is try to create conditions that decrease the likelihood that he will do that, which, of course, was part of this mineral deal so that we would be significant economic partners with them, having skin in the game. Does that guarantee that he would never try and invade again? No, of course not, but nothing does. I mean, Zelensky's wanting us to arm him with nuclear weapons. That wouldn't guarantee it either. Less than an hour before entering the Oval Office, Zelensky met with several lawmakers, including Democrat Senator Murphy of Connecticut and other Democrats. Based on the wording of Murphy's post, the senator pressed the Ukrainian president to reject a fake peace agreement. Just think about this for a moment. Here you have the President of the United States getting us far closer to a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia than ever occurred, which it doesn't take much because there was never any attempt. And things were moving in a very meaningful direction. Our European allies were on board with it, very pleased. And then you have Democrats openly encouraging Zelensky to reject the peace deal? I don't know what's more appalling, the fact that here you have, I mean, you want to talk about offering aid and comfort to our enemy, Putin. They talk about, Putin, Putin, Putin over and over again. You can only imagine what glee Putin experiences watching Democrats encourage Zelensky to reject a peace deal. I don't know if that's more appalling, the undermining of the President of the United States when we talk about war and the attempt to end war, or just from a humanitarian standpoint. People are dying. People's lives every single day. And to actively go out and try and prevent a peace deal from being, it's just an unbelievable position that some of these elected Democrats are taking. Play a couple more bits of audio coming up. Marco Rubio, as usual, is just absolutely on point. He was on with Stephanopoulos. We've got Tulsi Gabbard and more coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. So after this third agreement Zelensky broke to sign the mineral deal, he's telling the BBC that, okay, this time he will. According to reporting by the BBC, said through a translator, let's see, the BBC's Laura Kessenberg quizzed Zelensky about the future of the agreement. Zelensky's answers saying the materials or the minerals deal is ready for the minister to sign. Quote, it is our policy to continue what happened in the past. We're constructive, he said. If we agreed to sign the minerals deal, then we are ready to sign it. So, here we go again. Here's White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller over the weekend on the Oval Office meltdown, blow up, whatever you want to call it.
There were many remarkable and disturbing things that Zelensky said. He repeatedly rejected President Trump's statement that we should pursue a ceasefire.
Right.
How could you reject a ceasefire? And he kept saying Europe's doing so much more than us. Well, then what do you need us for? If he's saying Europe's so great, then why are you coming and begging and pleading to us for money and protection and guarantees? President Trump is a peacemaker. He will fight for peace. He had peace for 4 years under his previous term. And today we saw what it's like to have a strong leader in the White House, and the whole world saw what it's like to have a strong leader for America.
Some of the problem is Zelensky has been created to this individual that is accustomed to being treated like a celebrity. He has been treated like a celebrity. I mean, he really has. And what he has been accustomed to is every time he asks for something, he gets it. And I think that has created this sense of entitlement that we see, this level of ungratefulness. Now, honestly, you can have some just cultural and translation issues that make him seem a little less grateful than he is. But his behavior is his constant just assumption that the United States of America needs to continue to dole out hundreds of, billions of dollars. And for the talk of Europe doing more than we are, they got a deal where their money is alone. Whereas the Biden administration said, don't worry, you can just have it. No need to pay us back. Tulsi Gabbard on with Shannon Breen reflecting on Friday's incident.
There were many remarkable and disturbing things that Zelensky said.
Scratch that wrong audio. Here is Tulsi Gabbard. Oh, for Pete's sakes. Here is Tulsi Gabbard.
Of course, and President Trump has made very clear that in his previous conversations with both Putin and Zelensky that he wants to engage with both. He wants to engage in honest and real negotiations. And unfortunately, what happened in the White House after close to an hour of conversation when President Zelensky directly challenged President Trump and Vice President Vance in front of the media and the American people, he really showed his lack of interest in any real good faith negotiations. I can tell you there were a lot of conversations that were happening through different emissaries, both for Zelensky and for President Trump, leading up to his visit there to the Oval Office. And President Zelensky's immediate escalation there was frankly quite a surprise. This has created a huge rift in the relationship. President Zelensky, as you pointed out in the clips that you played, doesn't believe that he did anything wrong and that there was no issue with what he brought up in the Oval Office with President Trump. There's going to have to be a rebuilding of any kind of interest in good faith negotiations, I think, before President Trump is going to be willing to re-engage on this.
There's been Tulsi Gabbard again there. Now, there's been a lot of discussion. Can this relationship be repaired? There's one thing that Trump has demonstrated. There is no fight, there's no spat, there's no battle too great to overcome with someone if people have the same goal in mind. This is one of the character traits of Trump. I mean, look at his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Little hands. Remember that? I mean, those two hated each other. If Trump will ally with someone that has been his worst enemy in some other capacity, if it is for the good of whatever the goal is. So there's no concern here that the relationship can or there shouldn't be, can or cannot be repaired. All that matters is Zelensky able to convince Trump that he wants peace? But after that it is just so stark, you almost forget because all the back and forth that he flat out said that he's, not interested in diplomacy, not interested in a ceasefire. Well, then what are we doing? Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. for folks who are posting, I stand with Ukraine, I would encourage you to post what it is that you want for Ukraine. What are you gunning for here? If it isn't peace, then what is it? I think that there is a real lack of dealing with reality by some of these people on the left that just want to virtue signal this stuff. And what is it that you are looking for? Well, I just want them to be treated respectfully. Well, I'm talking about in the context of this war. Are you wanting peace? Do you want them to have more money to continue the killing? What? I think that's something that many of you need to really try and figure out. News in 60 seconds. Springfield Talk 104.1. Welcome to the show. Iconic legendary Styx special guest Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon live at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena June 7th. You can get signed up for your chance to win tickets at KSGF.com. We've done those before, haven't we? Is that another round of them? I remember talking about giving those away. I know I did because I remember REO Speedwagon.
Yeah. Well, they were here a couple years ago.
Well, I thought we just a couple months ago gave some of these away. Because it was Thunder Ridge. It was Thunder Ridge. Anyhow, you can get registered for your chance to win tickets. Just go to KSGF.com. A couple text messages on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line regarding the never-ending war in Ukraine, and then on Friday, the declaration by Zelensky that he doesn't want a peace deal, he doesn't want a ceasefire, which, of course, ended everything because that's Trump's whole point. We often forget the Ukraine had nuclear weapons years ago. They felt they needed them to protect against Russia. The U.S. convinced them to give them up, promising we would protect them. Previous administrations created this issue, but Trump is the only one trying to fix it. And that is true. That was an agreement made during the Clinton years, and the argument was that we as a country made is that, hey, you don't need nuclear weapons because we will come to your aid militarily should Russia invade, and of course we did not do that. None of these people have actually served on the ground for endless conflicts that net zero results except to get elected into office. There have been a couple of notations that show Zelensky is part of the problem. I know this is a news flash for some people. Now, we saw Friday the heated exchange that took place, and those things happen. I think that some people need to put on their big boy pants and understand, particularly when you're talking about war and people killing each other, sometimes it gets a little bit heated. This fairy tale land that people want to live in, where everything is rainbows and unicorns, and we could just magically wish things to be better and just, well, I'll just change my background to the colors of their flag, and that's going to make everything okay. That's not real life. Real life is sometimes people getting into heated arguments over very important things. The Treasury Secretary over the weekend talked about how he and Zelensky had a same sort of, after he said he was going to sign the mineral deal the first time, then he didn't, and he said it was a 45-minute conversation in which the decibel levels got quite high. From the New York Times, back in October of 2022, or maybe this is NBC, talking about Biden and the trouble that he had with Zelensky, noting Biden had barely finished telling Zelensky he just green-lighted another $1 billion in U.S. military assistance for Ukraine when Zelensky started listing all the additional help he needed and wasn't getting. Biden lost his temper. The people familiar with the call said the American people were being quite generous, and his administration and the U.S. military were working hard to help Ukraine, he said, raising his voice, and Zelensky could show a little more gratitude. So in other words, it's the exact same exchange that occurred in the Oval Office, specifically with J.D. Vance. But as usual, see, when the senile old man with a D next to his name did it, it was perfectly fine. And look at this. Biden standing up for the American people and the taxpayer. When J.D. Vance notes the exact same thing. Well, he has, to deal with people protesting him. He and his family were on a ski vacation. They had to go into some, secret location because of apparent threats against his life. This personality conflict that was on full display Friday between Trump, Vance, and Zelensky. One, again, these things do happen. But this isn't something that is unique to Trump and Vance. Zelensky has had these problems with numerous people across the political aisle. And I'm not claiming that he's wrong for it. I'm not claiming that he's right for it. That's not the point of this conversation. This is just nothing new. And unfortunately, what we have, instead of adults being able to evaluate this stuff and look at the realities of what is being discussed and debated, instead, it's all about how horrible Trump is. Blame the United States first. When, according to reports, Democrats preemptively encouraged Zelensky to tank the whole peace deal. The Democrat Party, the party of never-ending war. Boy, if I'd been told, see, when I grew up, the Democrats, they were known as these lefty, bleeding heart liberals, that they were against every war. They spit on our soldiers when they came back. But now, it seems as if they just want to keep that meat grinder going and going and going and going. But hey, you know, they put up a I Stand for Ukraine on their Facebook page, so they've got skin in the game. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 62. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms overnight with a low around 51. For your Tuesday, showers and thunderstorms with a high near 61. And looking ahead to Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 41.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, for all of your home buying needs, your home selling needs, and everything in between. She's got the connection. She's got the hookup. You're selling your home, and then you've got an offer on it, but they want you to fix about half a dozen different things, but you don't even know where to start. She's got those connections for you. She can help set it up for you. In fact, you read some of the reviews, and that's an area where she has really shined, or is it shown, in the past, and that is helping arrange all of that, because it can be very overwhelming. You're worried you're going to get ripped off. Are they actually going to do a good job? On a daily basis, Emily deals with these people, so she knows who's good, who's reliable, and who's not going to take advantage of you. All of your home buying needs, your home selling needs, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Marco Rubio is just continuing to prove that he is a tremendous pick for Secretary of State. And he was on with George Stephanopoulos. I want to play a couple minutes of the conversation they had, because Rubio manages to really address this in a manner that I think most people can recognize is it's a boiled down, just straight up ask some honest questions of ourselves, and particularly, and you'll hear the exchange, pushing back on this whole concessions to Putin argument. But if you notice, like, ask yourself this: what concession are they talking about? They never list any concessions, because there aren't any. It is this fake narrative that is Russia, Russia, Russia. And so they throw out, now, of course, this is Stephanopoulos. Let's not forget his network had to pay out handsomely because he falsely accused Trump on a number of occasions of being a convicted rapist, which wasn't true. That's why they had to pay out. Yet he is still deemed as credible, and that's why they keep him on the network. So, grain of salt. But here is the exchange that Marco Rubio had with George Stephanopoulos.
All these other things that people keep bringing up, that'll have to be a part of a negotiation. Right now, there is no negotiation. Shouldn't we at least try to see if there is a way to end this war in a way that's acceptable to both sides and is enduring and sustainable? How is that a bad thing? I really am puzzled why anyone thinks that trying to be a peacemaker is a bad thing. It's only a bad thing when it's Donald Trump trying to do it. When it's President Trump, it's absurd to me.
Well, even some of your Republican allies are puzzled by the steps.
I want you to note here. There was no reflection. There was no even offering up, well, you say this, I believe that. It's just, this is what you see, but the American people understand for the most part what's going on, is you have a straightforward question that is presented here by Rubio. Like, what is so bad about trying to get peace? What is the problem here? And Stephanopoulos just ignores it. Oh, because here I found a Republican that's bashing on Trump, so let's talk about that.
President Trump has taken to placate Vladimir Putin. I want to bring up a post that Lisa Murkowski.
Well, which ones? What steps has the president taken to placate?
Let me show you.
Are we arming the Russians? Are we providing economic assistance to the Russians? Have we given the Russians $180 billion?
Please let me ask you a question. This is Lisa Murkowski, and here's what she says. This week started with administration officials refusing to acknowledge that Russia started the war in Ukraine. It ends with a tense and shocking conversation in the Oval Office and whispers from the White House that they may try to end all U.S. support for Ukraine. I know foreign policy is not for the faint of heart, but right now I am sick to my stomach as the administration appears to be walking away from our allies and embracing Putin, a threat to democracy and U.S. values around the world. Those are not my words. That's Senator Lisa Murkowski. What's your response?
Well, yeah, we're a free country. People have a right to these opinions. I would just say to you, what have we done to placate the Russians? The only thing we've done is say, are you guys willing to talk about peace? I say the same point. We're not giving them. We haven't given.
You voted with North Korea and Russia and you voted with North Korea and Russia and Belarus in the United Nations and against our Western allies.
No, let me tell you. All right. So do you know what the United Nations resolution was? I'll tell you if you want to hear what it was. It basically said this has been a horrible war. It's time for it to end. The job of the UN is to bring about peace in the world. I thought that's what the UN was created to do, to stop wars and to prevent them. And that's what the resolution did. Was it antagonistic towards the Russians? No. Back to the point. But it also didn't praise the Russians. All it said is, this is a bad war. It needs to end. And by the way, at the Security Council, which has not been widely reported, the first resolution on Ukraine that has passed the Security Council in 3 years, passed this week because of the leadership of President Trump, and it's a resolution that says bad war needs to end. Let's bring the two sides together. That's what the resolution is. Again, what is the United Nations for? Isn't it not a forum to promote peace in the world? And shouldn't our president, shouldn't we all be happy that we have a president who's trying to stop wars and prevent them instead of start them? And I just don't get it. I really don't, other than the fact that it's Donald J. Trump. If this was a Democrat that was doing this, everyone would be saying, well, he's on his way to the Nobel Peace Prize. This is absurd. We are trying to end a war. You cannot end a war unless both sides come to the table, starting with the Russians. And that is the point the president has made. And we have to do whatever we can to try to bring them to the table to see if it's even possible. I'm not promising you it's possible. I'm not telling you it's 90% likely. I'm saying it's 0% likely if we don't get them to a negotiating table. And the sooner everyone grows up around here and figures out that this is a bad war that's heading in a bad direction with death and destruction and all kinds of dangers surrounding it that could spiral into a broader conflict, the sooner people grow up and realize that, I think the more progress we're going to be able to make. But the president's crystal clear. He campaigned on it, and he's going to govern on it. And that is, he is going to be a president that tries to achieve peace, and he has been very clear this is a war that would have never happened had Donald Trump been in the White House, and it needs to end, and we're going to do everything we can to end it in an enduring and sustainable and fair way.
And, of course, it didn't happen under Trump. It began, the Crimean Peninsula invasion, the southern part of Ukraine, under the Obama administration. Trump becomes president, and Putin stops. Biden becomes president, he resumes. So it's not a hypothetical. Rubio's suggestion here that people need to grow up is spot on. I mean, the ludicrous nature of Stephanopoulos and, well, but at the United Nations, and what was referenced here is there were these competing resolutions. The United Nations is such a piece of trash organization. Such a piece of trash organization that does nothing real meaningful in a positive way. And so you had these two competing resolutions. One was trashing on Putin, and the other one was just like, this war sucks. We need to stop it. It wasn't pointing the finger at anyone. And so you have, what has been up until Zelensky apparently was encouraged to dump the peace deal by a number of elected Democrats. Very meaningful steps being taken forward. And to understand why Trump does what he does, all one has to do is understand that in the context of this conflict, it is for the purpose of ending it. And Trump calculated that if he is supposed to be the arbitrator, if he's supposed to be the diplomat here between the two sides, it isn't going to help if he's running around picking who is the winner and who's the loser. He understands what his position has to be in this if he is going to be the person that brings these sides together. You can't poke the finger in the eye of one of the two sides and then expect them to come to the table. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And this is what you could just sense the frustration with all of the people who are involved in this. And so, what does Stephanopoulos do? Well, he's siding with Putin. He's siding with anything and everything that he believes will make this thing more likely to happen. And that is, an end to it all. It is clear the left does not care. The Democrat Party just does not care about that. Only in as much as they don't want it to happen, because they don't want Trump to have what they see as a success. And I can only imagine just the tremendous amount of frustration as you work to craft this deal between these two sides, ending a 3-year war that has cost hundreds of thousands of lives, only to see Democrats undermine it and encourage Zelensky to pull the cord on the whole thing and blow it up. For what reason? Telling them this doesn't count, it's a fake peace deal? Now, I think that a lot of people assume that when Trump is like, I'm out, until it's clear that he really seriously wants peace here, there's no point in this, and so I'm out. And I think that's the right position to take. For all of the people who hate Trump, is this not what you want? Trump just to say, fine, I'm out of it. Now, of course, he'll get blamed for that as well. No matter what he does, he's going to get blamed for it. You've got UK and France are saying they're going to craft a coalition of the willing, a Ukraine peace plan, and that they will present it to the United States. Now, if this is something that in reality that they're going to all try to be involved in, good luck. You think that it has been difficult, particularly with Democrats trying to undermine all of these efforts, having these different one-on-one meetings, trying to get everyone on the same page. You're just going to have a room filled with leaders from European countries all trying to come together with something? What an absolute shameful mess that has been crafted here by people who seemingly have absolutely no interest in this thing coming to an end. And like Marco Rubio says, how can you be against that? I mean, isn't this what we all want? This thing to come to a close? But apparently not. I thought I'd share with you U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt, Missouri, posting Zelensky could have signed the deal 5 days earlier but wanted to come to the White House. He'd been difficult for 2 weeks, yet he wanted the White House meeting. Trump was upbeat about it, even just the day before, publicly and privately the day of. Although he could have reset the whole thing, Zelensky was antagonistic and over the top. There are no more cards to play. No more, it could be your son's next, or one more year and we'll have them on our knees. America has to move to our core interests now, homeland and China. All he has to do, or all Zelensky had to do, was smile for the cameras, sign the mineral deal, and have lunch. That's it. He couldn't do it. He failed his country in the relatively standard practice for an Oval Office meeting like this. There are now serious questions if we can even deal with him. He blew it. He had a 1 foot putt, but was more interested in litigating issues that should be discussed behind closed doors and have been in public. It is in the national interest of the U.S. for there to be a peace deal now. Trump ran on this. It's not a surprise. There will be no more money for war there. Not from us. Now is the time for peace. Yeah, that's a real easy way for us to deal with. Just get out of it. We don't owe them. I mean, it's this instinct a lot of people have that somehow we owe them the financial means to continue slogging through this thing with no end in sight. Just simple answer. Europe, go ahead, deal with it. It's all yours. Have at it. Knock yourselves out. If Trump is so horrible, so awful, and he's just siding with Putin in ways that nobody can actually explain, then just done, okay? You guys figure it out. Good luck. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. A number of Democrats and Senator Chris Murphy, again, I'm a little shocked that he admitted this, posting on X before Zelensky went to the White House. He posted, just finished a meeting with President Zelensky here in Washington. He confirmed that the Ukrainian people will not support a fake peace agreement where Putin gets everything he wants and there are no security agreements for Ukraine. Again, what is that listing of things Putin gets? Nobody knows. That post was made less than an hour before Zelensky showed up at the White House. So there was a clear effort to undermine this. Those people that were involved in convincing Zelensky to kick the peace deal to the curb, they own this thing. And I'd make sure that everyone knows it. Going to get the latest traffic update, read some of your text messages. Then coming up, a male athlete winning MVP of women's college basketball tournament after dominating Christian rival in a title game. Once again, women taking a back seat in the world of the left.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 62. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms overnight with a low around 51. For your Tuesday, showers and thunderstorms with a high near 61. And looking ahead to Wednesday, we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 41.
All right, some of your text messages on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Europe materially supports Putin every day, even today, by buying fuel from them to prevent the same places like Springfield need to build a new modern coal power plant. Yes, let's not forget that it was Donald Trump in his first term that got the left all in a tizzy because he called out some of our European allies, specifically Germany, for funding Putin. This was the pipeline that was gas coming one way and then money going the other, right into Russia. And Trump told them, you do not want, one, to be so financially supportive of Putin, but also you don't want to be reliant on Putin for your energy. Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about Putin. They mocked Trump over. When you look at the actual meaningful steps, things that really do matter, Trump is the guy that has consistently either pushed back against Putin or encouraged others to do it. Trump is like a dad who came home from work, found out his kids have been fighting all day long, and he wants it to stop. He doesn't care who started it or who has whose toy. He just wants it stopped now, and that's absolutely true. In the meantime, you got all of this outside noise demanding that he point a finger, demanding. Because, if he's more interested in ending it than blaming Putin, then that means he's the bad guy. He's supposed to name call. Isn't that hilarious? I mean, you look back at the way the left handled Trump when he was calling Kim Jong-un Rocket Man, and how Trump was going to start some sort of war because he was going to poke the bear, and we kept hearing about how dangerous it was for Donald Trump to use rhetoric that could antagonize our opposition. Now they're mad because he's not antagonizing Putin. When the reason is for not antagonizing Putin is to try to end this thing. As usual, it's just all about whatever Trump does or says. He's wrong, he's bad, he's awful. It's all right, let it be their problem. Knock yourselves out, handle it. I mean, it's been the last 3+ years have been going swimmingly, have they not? George texting in, the Europeans should be handling the entire situation. It affects them directly, yeah? I mean, this is what they want. Have at it. A Canadian women's college basketball conference championship game Saturday night saw a male who identifies as a female score 21 points in victory and ultimately win tournament most valuable player. Trans athlete Harriet McKenzie led Vancouver Island University to a 69-59 victory over Columbia Christian College in the Pac West Championship game. McKenzie finished the game with 10 rebounds in addition to the athlete's game-leading 21 points. McKenzie was then awarded conference tournament's most valuable player in a ceremony after the game. As if they weren't able to stick it to actual girls enough, they decided to take the most valuable female player slot away from females. What, Saturday? Did you say what day?
Yeah,
Saturday.
What a way to kick it off and celebrate Women's History Month, right?
Oh, yeah. Is this Women's History Month?
It is.
Yes, this is a fantastic way to kick it off. To have a man win and be
the most valuable
most valuable player in female basketball. McKenzie awarded the conference tournament MVP in the ceremony after the game, capping off a season in which the athlete punished competition on the court, leading the entire conference in scoring by a 62-point margin over the second-place scorer, and leveraged Canada's anti-discrimination laws to bring punishment to Columbia Christian College off the court. McKenzie's tournament MVP honor and conference championship came after the season-long feud between the two teams, which the male athlete was at the center of. McKenzie was the conference's Player of the Year in 2023. I mean, how can anyone push this and support this and claim that they are supportive of women's rights? I mean, it is dumbfounding to me, but quite a feat that the left has pulled off, particularly when they have women supporting this sort of thing, like the governor of Maine. They managed to actually get women to support men pretending to be women and then knocking them out of MVP slots, knocking them out of, the first place conferences all over and you notice, while they say this is about transgenders, what is the one consistent marker of every one of these stories? It is a man or a boy competing as a girl, not the other way around. What does that tell you? For the false claims that, there's no proof. Really? You can't figure this out when it always goes one way and not the other? When it's always the boy who identifies as the girl who wins and not the girl who identifies as the boy who beats all the other boys? You can't figure that one out? I mean, it's just unbelievable. There's a story regarding transgenders in the military, and evidently the media has been lying about the number of transgenders in the military, which of course should come as no surprise. For the last decade, establishment media touting advocates' claims of 15,000 transgender people serving in the U.S. military. But this week, the Pentagon revealed that the transgender population is just over 4,000. That adds up to one transgender person for every 500 service members in the U.S. military of 2.1 million active and reserve members. That would make the share of self-identifying transgenders at 0.2%, or 1/5 of 1%. The media's much-claimed 15,000 number is almost 4 times the Pentagon's 2025 count of 4,240 self-declared transgender service members. Well, of course, because it fits their narrative. Like everything else with the media, they find the numbers that fit their story, and they go with them. It's how we ended up with Hamas dictating to the media the numbers on how many innocent people were killed by the evil Jews. Well, because Hamas said this is how many. And when it came to pushing the cause of transgenders serving in the military, they used these massively overinflated numbers by advocates for the cause. Again, why it is that the credibility of the mainstream media in the eyes of the American people is the lowest it's ever been since those numbers have been calculated. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. There was a real protest against the deportation, the capture, the arrest, and deportation of an individual in this country illegally as he was dropping off his kids. Oh, my goodness gracious. The arrest of an illegal migrant who was dropping students at school in Chicago earlier this week sparked local fury and a rally. But Immigration and Customs Enforcement have since revealed the suspect is a violent gang member with a very long rap sheet. So they've just been waiting for this. They've just been waiting for that moment that they could fulfill this narrative with some sort of visuals or an actual arrest that the Trump administration were going to be ripping kids out of schools. And they're going to be coming and they're going to be infiltrating the schools and they're going to be taking these individuals away, ripping them away from their children. They've just been waiting and they finally found their moment. The problem is the guy's a really bad guy. Francisco Andre Barrera, 37, a Mexican citizen, picked up by ICE on Wednesday near a Southside Chicago school, leading to activists and local leaders holding a rally for him. In response to the arrest, 2 nearby schools activated community wellness protocols and notified parents that additional social work support would be available to help students cope with the stressful and upsetting arrest of a violent drug gang leader. During the rally, which took place outside the Chicago Public Schools, Chicago Alderman Byron Cincho Lopez asked, quote, "When parents are being grabbed from our schools, we must ask, what is Chicago Public Schools doing to protect our children?" Well, I don't know about you, but it seems to me as if probably making sure that that violent individual isn't around kids is probably a good step forward. Do we really need to evaluate whether or not children are more or less safe when violent drug dealers who have multiple arrest records, they're removed away from kids? To me, that seems like that would be a positive for safety of children, not a negative. Hilario Dominguez of the Chicago Teachers Union, clearly with students' best interest in mind, blasted the detention and launched a tirade against Donald Trump. Quote, "His children watched as their daddy was put in handcuffs by agents carrying out the orders of a tyrant president." But the outburst erupted before the full facts of the case came through, with ICE informing Fox News that Andre Barrera is a member of a violent street gang with criminal convictions for drug trafficking, gang loitering, and damage to property. He's been removed from the U.S. not once but twice, in 2005 and 2013. He has at least 4 children, according to prior reports. The 2 students who were in the vehicle were taken to their school after the arrest, but agents did not attempt to enter either Victoria Soto High School or Ovida Idar Elementary. ICE and school officials confirmed it is unclear if the students are his children. As for the poor daddy that got arrested, he pleaded guilty back in 2023 to purchasing roughly 5 ounces of cocaine that federal prosecutors in Chicago said he planned to sell, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. He was sentenced to 3 years of supervised release and given credit for 2 weeks spent in custody. He describes himself as a husband and the father of 4 beautiful kids in a letter to the judge explaining that he worked as a chef and dreamed of opening his own restaurant, per the outlet. Quote, "I've worked hard to support my family all these years and made sure that they had a good life. If I could go back in time, I would without hesitation." Tom Weitzel, former police chief in Riverdale, Illinois, noted that local Democrats are trying to politicize the arrest and make ICE out to be the boogeyman. Quote, "They're going to put out anything that benefits their agenda, benefits their narrative, or benefits their political agenda. So they just look at this as President Trump's initiative to just go around the country and scoop people off the sidewalks and out of schools, and that isn't the case." He noted there has not been one single case in the entire United States where ICE has gone into a school and removed somebody forcibly from the school. That is completely false. You have to wonder, how much do these people really truly care about their kids? Or about these kids, rather. When they protest against violent criminals, drug dealers, being arrested, all in the name of having children and keeping the family together. I saw this posting, and it was some gal, and it was all about, what are you going to tell your child whenever they see ICE agents come in and take away one of their classmates? And while that isn't happening, I think that is a reasonable question to ask. Should that ever happen? If it were me, I'd simply explain, when you break the law and you get caught, you're held accountable. And that if we up and move to some other country and we did not go through the legal process that hundreds of thousands of other people did go through in order to legally be in that country, and eventually I got caught, then that same thing would happen to me. And here in the United States, if I break a law and I get caught, I get arrested for it. That is what happens. It's really not that difficult of a conversation to have. That is, if you believe everyone should be treated equally, and that the law should apply to everyone, not just certain segments of the population. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. Spring, it will be here soon, which means now is the time to prep your home for that warmer weather, and that also includes your roof. Now, the best way to do that is with a free roof inspection with the Pyramid Roofing Company, and that free roof inspection with the Pyramid team is a very thorough one. They check everything from your gutters. They make sure that your vents are working properly. They check for areas that may hold moisture, which could later lead to mold issues. They take note of trees and branches that could be a problem during severe weather, and they even check your attic and the decking. And then they work through the best solution for you and your home, whether that be a roof repair or a roof replacement. So if it is time to schedule that free roof inspection, go ahead and give Josh and his team a call today. And of course, you can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Poor old Lindsey Graham. He can't ever catch a break, no matter what side he takes. So he's really being reamed because he has suggested that Zelensky should step down. Remember back whenever he said the same thing, that Putin should be taken out? Remember that? And everyone's like, you can't say that. Democrats in particular. It's very difficult to figure out on any given day where Democrats stand. And I remember that that call by Lindsey Graham that Putin should just be taken out. And I mean, Democrats, they just were beside themselves on it. Not that Republicans were necessarily in full support. So he gets reamed for saying that Putin should no longer be running Russia. Now he's getting reamed for saying Zelensky should no longer be running Ukraine. And of course, he's not the only one internally. There are a lot of forces that are, in fact, calling for the impeachment of Zelensky because of the display. I think what a lot of people in America don't realize is that not everyone in Ukraine is for this thing continuing, this human meat grinder, day after day, month after month, year after year. And while a lot of them, may support it, but I think there's this idea that a lot of Americans have that they're all in this and they want it to continue on and continue just, for another year and another year and another year. And that's not necessarily reality. Ideally, I'm sure they would all love to have Crimean Peninsula back and these other regions that have been taken by Russian forces. But at some point, you get to where you just want the whole thing to come to a close. And there is, I believe, this misunderstanding that many Americans have that everyone over there is fully supportive of Zelensky and this continued effort. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. My name is Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. We have happy hour coming up on Friday at Retro Metro from 4 to 6. Come hang with the cool kids. You can also, at KSGF.com, get yourself registered. This is another event that you may find to be of interest. Sticks. Special guest Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon live at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena. And that will be coming up Saturday, June 7th. So if you would like an opportunity to win tickets for that, then just head on over to KSGF.com and get yourself signed up. I know, those were the Oscars last night. Is that what happened?
I guess
the Oscars?
so. Did you see all those weird outfits?
I saw one. I didn't even know the actress's name. There was one actress. She's on some show on BET saying that people in her community, I guess she's talking about the black community, can like go back to their roots, countries in Africa, to get away from Trump. Yeah, I mean, pretty much. As long as the country will have you, you can move lots of places. I love how they make these statements as if this isn't just an obvious known. Well, I just think that we could just move out. Okay, you guys, you've been saying this for a long time. I mean, how long do we have to hear people on the left claim that they're going to move out of the country because of Donald Trump? Just do it. And then the few times where one appears as if they, like Ellen DeGeneres, it turns out that they already had a home there. I mean, we weren't really doing anything different. It's just so typical of the left. The virtue signaling, the doing the absolute bare minimum possible. I don't know. Increasingly, when I watch just the visuals of these award shows, and there's something about the visuals of holding a gold statue as they pat each other on the back and talk about how wonderful they are, and we must make sure hate doesn't go unchecked, and shout outs to whatever the cause du jour is. Of course, it's Ukraine right now because of Friday. All of that is coming back up. And you just see these people are so out of touch with what the rest of the world is going through. There's something almost appalling about being one of or collectively, some of the richest people in the world promoting an ongoing war to keep going. I mean, there's just something very unsavory about that, in my opinion. Just in my opinion. I want coming up to talk about this executive order that got signed Saturday and got a bit overshadowed because of Friday. English now the official language of the United States. Now, I almost wish that Trump had put this off just so we could enjoy the left pulling their hair out over this. Because of the Zelensky thing, their focus is on that right now, as opposed to the American people getting to watch the Trump derangement syndrome over making English the official language here in the United States. This is something that has been talked about before. There have been efforts to do this in the past, but for a variation of reasons, it never actually happens. But so Trump has signed this executive order, what that means, and why let me tell you, this is such a no-brainer. It is such an absolute no-brainer. First, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 62. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms overnight with a low around 51. For your Tuesday, showers and thunderstorms with a high near 61. And looking ahead to Wednesday, we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 41.
English now the official language of the United States. President Trump signing that executive order Saturday, designating English as the official language. The order explains the rationale behind the decision. Quote, from the founding of our republic, English has been used as our national language. Our nation's historic governing documents, including the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, have all been written in English. The order states a nationally designated language is at the core of a unified and cohesive society, and the United States is strengthened by citizenry that can freely exchange ideas in one shared language. The executive order notably revokes Obama's 2000 Executive Order 13166, which forced government agencies to accommodate those with limited English proficiency at taxpayer expense. What it does not do is require agencies to amend, remove, or otherwise stop production of documents, products, or other services prepared or offered in languages other than English. Agency heads maintain discretion to make decisions as they deem necessary to fulfill their respective agency's mission. The order states, speaking English not only opens doors economically, but it helps newcomers engage in their communities, participate in national traditions, and give back to our society. The executive order further states, in welcoming new Americans, a policy of encouraging the learning and adoption of our national language will make the United States a shared home and empower new citizens to achieve the American dream. This is something that in the past, some people have been against largely because Republicans support it. While not all Republicans may support it, certainly if you were to look at which of the two parties has been supportive of this, it is the Republican Party. I mean, it goes back to the 90s, which there was an attempt to make English the official language. There is truth to the fact that if you live in a society, whatever that society is, and you are able to easily communicate, that immediately improves your quality of life. If I move to a country in which English is not the language, it is beneficial to me, or would be beneficial to me, in order to learn the language of that country so that I can more easily communicate with people. I mean, that's the whole reason that we talk with one another and have conversations with one another, is so that we are able to know what one another is thinking, what one another, requests, what we want. I mean, it is a very, very important thing that people are able to communicate with one another. And it is so counterproductive to instead encourage the opposite to occur, to encourage and foster a society that makes it more likely that you have all these different pockets of languages that are spoken. And the people who end up suffering, if you will, the most are the extreme minorities in terms of the languages being spoken. Now, some may say, well, if we're going to pick one language, why English? Well, a couple of reasons. One, historical purposes, but also that is what a majority of people speak. And so if you are going to have, this is just simple numbers, if you're going to have unofficial language, one official language, then you pick the language that the vast majority of people already speak. That way there are less people who have to learn it. This isn't a rocket science sort of thing. I mean, this is, even when it comes to technology, the importance of having different programs, quote, able to speak to one another is very important in order for, different software programs to work side by side. In addition to this, the concerns of the past, and this was something that was talked about in the 90s whenever the 104th Congress first evaluated making English the official language. And what would people who don't speak English do? What happens if there is someone who doesn't speak English and we do not make affordable to them some form of translation, whether it is the paperwork or it is a translator in the government system? Now, of course, the best answer is everybody learns English. That way we don't have these problems. But second to that is the fact that in this day and age, with cell phones and the technology available, the ability to translate things is so at everyone's fingertips. I mean, there are apps that you can utilize, and we see them advertised on television or in reels on social media, where somebody is in another country and they just speak into their phone and then it translates it for them. Or you have somebody speak into your phone and then it translates it into your native tongue. When it comes to paperwork and documents, with the same amount of ease, people are able to have things translated into their own language. So the obstacles that perhaps existed 30 years ago or more in terms of the lack of technology and language barriers, that stuff just doesn't exist anymore. We were so easily able to do this stuff. And so any of the arguments about how it would make life more difficult for people who have come to the United States and they don't speak English, all of the technology is available for people to be able to do this. This is just such a no-brainer. This isn't unique to the United States. Massive amounts of countries have official languages, some of which are English. So it's not as if this is, Donald Trump once again and some sort of racist move to set the country apart from everyone else. This actually gets us in line with most of the civilized world. It's a no-brainer. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com. All of your home loan needs, big, small, just as long as they're great. If you're looking for a home loan that's lackluster, a home loan that's mediocre, then you probably want to go elsewhere. But if you want a great home loan, then you want to go to IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com. Any of the questions that you may have, perhaps you've never done that before, or you did, but it was so long ago that the landscape has changed, and maybe you have struggled a little bit with your credit and you think, oh, that just takes forever to fix. Reach out to the Carrickers and their team, and they'll be more than happy to go over all the information with you and figure out the best course of action for you and your particular situation, their contact info, and so much more, plus to get started at IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com, because you do. We have happy hour coming up Friday, Retro Metro, 4 to 6. Love for you to come by. And now I shall read to you some of the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line messages. One, car on its side on 14 near OTC in Ozark, traffic stopped. I'm not sure if our traffic report had that one yet, so thank you for sending that in. In tuning in, did you cover the big boycott that took place on Friday? Any huge results to report on? Yeah, we actually opened the show with that, and I don't know. I just... Well, you said you went shopping, and
I did, and I waited in line for a very long time at TJ Maxx, so I don't think that there was any impact there.
I think Bill Maher was talking about this over the weekend, and just what an idiotic, ridiculous idea it is. It just all circles right back around to people that feel as if just saying something or posting something, there's this narcissism. They feel like, oh, it's really going to make a difference. Like, oh, I'm going to get on there and everyone needs to know. I'm going to not go shopping on Friday. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I stand with Ukraine. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad we got that figured out now. Thank goodness. Thank you for sharing that information. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing maybe the economic blow that is being taken by these different industries due to that boycott that was to take place on Friday is so big. They have to figure out how best to try to get ahead of it so that, they can try and put on a happy face. I'm sure just absolutely devastating to them. I did see someone had posted, I think it was on Friday, the Green Bridge. Did you see that posting? The walk over bridge by the Steak and Shake on South Campbell. And there were a bunch of left-wingers up there protesting, everything from Ukraine to whatever else. And the person who did the posting noted that they were all left-wingers, but in many instances how the signs contradicted one another. Particularly when it came to Ukraine. On one hand, they were like lefties like, stop the war, and then others like, keep funding the war. You guys really need to get your messaging on point here because you are all over the place, which is pretty. When I was working in an urgent care clinic in Washington State, an American family, English-speaking, brought in their adopted Russian 2-year-old nonverbal, and we did not provide a Russian interpreter for the nonverbal 2-year-old. They sued the clinic and won. So for every non-English speaker after that, we had to supply an interpreter, no matter which language they spoke, as a primary language. And then regarding the war in Ukraine, the reality is unless both sides are to stop fighting, you can't stop them. Zelensky is acting like he doesn't need U.S. support, is not European, should defending themselves one of Trump's goals to stop subsidizing Europe. Russia, when they attacked Ukraine 3 years ago, only came in with 200,000 troops. They were not prepared to fight a 3-year war. They thought they could take Kiev and install their guy in short order. They got their butts kicked. Had Biden not slow-walked the weapons and armed vehicles, I think that they could have taken back the Donbass, but now there are 750,000 Russian troops in Ukraine. Both sides are in a stalemate. I don't support people trying to undermine Trump's foreign policy. And this, of course, is the point. It is a stalemate. Now, other than just intellectual exercise, looking back at the way that things were conducted under the Biden administration, they really did set the stage for this to be long and drawn out. Now, that approach is not something the Biden administration had a monopoly on. There is this instinct that people who involve themselves in these situations have to tit for tat everything. And that's exactly what has happened in Ukraine during the previous administration. It's like giving them just enough to survive, just enough to counter Russia. No winning in sight. The Russians, the Biden administration signaled to the Russians that this is how they were going to play this thing out from the very beginning when they said that they would implement sanctions if Russia invaded. And there were a lot of people that said, why not just put the sanctions in place now? And then, if they back off of their threat, lift the sanctions. And I remember discussing this, Jen Psaki saying, well, but if we put sanctions on them now, we can't use them to get them to not invade. Like this whole twisted approach that the administration had to dealing with this that really was just based off of, all right, let's see what Russia does, and then we will help Ukraine counter it. Then let's see what Russia does, then counter. Russia, Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine. And the problem with that is if you don't give whichever side you're on the tools to actually win the thing, then all you're doing is dragging it out. If someone wants to take the approach that from the beginning we should have given Zelensky the tools that he needed to just completely wrap this thing up in short order, then we may be in a different place than we are today. Or if someone wanted to take the approach, hey, peace is not the answer here. A ceasefire is not the answer here. The only answer here is for Zelensky to win. Then you have to offer up the tools in order to make that happen. And that's not what is occurring. Now, I don't think that that is necessarily the best pathway, especially trying to nudge the United States into getting militarily involved in Ukraine. I think most Americans don't support that. I think a lot of Americans who say, I stand by Ukraine, if they all of a sudden found that their son or their daughter was on a flight to Ukraine to go fight in that war over there, they may not, quote, stand with Ukraine as strongly as they thought they did. There's three real pathways here. One, give Zelensky what he's wanting, and that is military support of the United States and Ukraine. Or come up with a peace deal, which is what Trump was trying to do. Or just stay out of it altogether, which as of Friday, that appears to be the stance of the United States of America. But if you don't change the way that you're doing something, then the outcomes are not going to change. And this is the thing that is so perplexing. I know we come back to this, but some of the text messages coming in reflecting on this, I just don't understand in practical means what it is that some of these anti-Trump people want to happen here. All they want to do is complain about Donald Trump. Well, complaining about Donald Trump does not stop the killing. Blaming Donald Trump does not stop the killing. And I think that if you were to force some of these people to just sit down and really spell out what is it that you want to happen, I think many of them don't even know. I think the one thing that leads them is this hatred for Donald Trump, which is why apparently just an hour before that White House meeting, Zelensky was huddled with Democrats encouraging him to trash the peace plan. And of course, we saw the outcome of that. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 62. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms overnight with a low around 51. For your Tuesday, showers and thunderstorms with a high near 61. And looking ahead to Wednesday, we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 41.
I thought I'd play some Bernie Sanders. He was on NBC with Kristen Welker on Sunday, and it's just sometimes nice to hear the oldie but goodies. And Bernie Sanders, old school, and so he likes to bring this stuff back, and that is Republicans want to slash Medicaid and Medicare to give tax cuts to billionaires. It's like, oh yes, breaking out the gold standard for the old Marxists, and Bernie Sanders is leading that charge. Now, the reason, of course, this came up was because Kristen Welker was asking about the spending issue, and Democrats continue to run around saying we're not against spending cuts. Oh, we all agree that when it comes to fraud and waste, that there are plenty of places to cut. Yet, why have they not done that? Where are their proposals? Their position on spending cuts is much like their position when it comes to limitations on abortion. They claim that they don't support abortion up until birth, but when you ask them at what point do you cut it off, and suddenly they have no answer. And that is because, of course, they support no cutoff. When it comes to the issue of finding wasteful spending, well, of course we support cutting out wasteful spending. I mean, everyone supports that. Oh, really? Well, where? Tell us where. Suddenly they have no answer, because the answer is they do not support cutting out wasteful spending. So here is Bernie Sanders and Kristen Welker asking about the years that Democrats have been in charge and their lack of any interest in making any of these cuts.
Say that both Medicare and Medicaid made more than $100 billion in payment errors in 2023. Let me ask you, Senator, Democrats were in charge for 4 years. Should the Democratic Party have done more to address some of those issues with the insolvency of our entitlement programs?
And Trump was in power 4 years before that. Look, if there is waste and fraud in the Defense Department, which is the largest single budget item that we fund, which has not been able to fulfill an independent audit in the last 7 times, where there's massive waste and fraud, we should go after waste, fraud, and abuse in every agency of government. There's no argument about that. But let us be very clear. What Republicans are trying to do right now is to make massive cuts in Medicaid, over $800 billion, cuts in nutrition programs which feed hungry children. Why are they doing that? Because they want to be able to use those savings to provide over $1 trillion in tax breaks for the richest 1%, for the Elon Musks and the Zuckerbergs and the Bezoses of the world. In my view, you don't take food away from children, health care away from struggling people to give tax breaks to billionaires. Do we go after waste and fraud in every agency of government? Yes, we do.
But I'm just not going to identify where any of it is. It almost makes you think perhaps listening to people call Trump Hitler isn't that bad after all, because this is so tired and so old. If you're new to the game and paying attention to the accusations, this accusation has been around as long as I've been alive. Republicans are going to slash Social Security. Republicans are going to deny hungry kids their meals, all so they can give tax cuts to their wealthiest trillionaire friends. None of this is new. None of this is new in terms of the accusations. Mind you, this is a political party that supported Biden denying hungry kids meals in school, those below the poverty level, unless the school forced girls to shower with boys and compete against boys. Let's not forget that that was so important to the Democrats to force girls into that position. Any school that did not comply would have funding for kids under the poverty level for their breakfast and lunch taken from them. That happened. In fact, Springfield had a big vote over the Springfield school board, and because the lefties have the majority on the school board, they voted to comply with the demands of the Biden administration to not lose funding for those programs. So let's not get too caught up in pretending that the left cares about kids having funding denied them. But the ludicrous nature of this. The first time that I, as an adult, I don't even know if I was an adult, but I remember the way this game played out, and I believe it was back again to the Gingrich era. And Democrats would, come along and say, we need an increase in school lunches by 20%. And Republicans would say, no, not 20%. We'll increase it 10%. And they would get accused of slashing the dollars for the program, when in fact they were pushing an increase. And there were instances, Jesse Jackson was involved, I'm sure Al Sharpton was as well, going to some of these inner city schools and leading protests. Republicans were going to steal lunches from kids. It's an absolute lie. But they do it because the media doesn't call them out on it. They do it because here you have Kristen Welker asking a completely legitimate question. Hey, you guys say that you support spending cuts, but why haven't you done it? You were in charge for 4 years. Well, so was Trump. Okay, yeah, and Trump's the one. This is the response to that. He's the one who's trying to do it. He's the one who's doing it. Yeah, Trump did increase spending in his first 4 years. We did have a spending problem. Some of that can be attributed to the hysterics of COVID. But I don't think that it's fair to say there were any assurances if COVID had not happened that Trump would not have increased the spending. Now, once Democrats got in charge, they definitely outdid him. But Trump is now, in a meaningful way, working towards these cuts. The contradiction of Bernie Sanders on one hand in this whole interview is about him accusing Donald Trump of trying to cut too much, while at the same time trying to, cover up for their own behavior by noting that Trump never cut anything. In one sitting, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. The message that I would consistently continue to push is the welcoming of Democrats' suggestion as to where to cut the waste. Because they keep saying that they fully support cutting waste. They keep saying that everyone agrees with that. Well, this is a great opportunity for bipartisanship, for the leadership, whomever that is, in the Democrat Party, to deliver to the White House or to Mike Johnson or to the DOJ committee some of the wasteful spending. It's an opportunity for Democrats to prove that they really mean it. And, of course, it's negligence on behalf of the media to not ask them that question until they answer it. What wasteful spending do you support cutting? I haven't heard any elected Democrat yet identify even 1 cent. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live. What is this song?
That
is it chanting "I hate you"? What is?
It's Tom McDonald. He's a conservative rapper.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
This was not.
It's a song about being put on the left and being put on the right, and how they pin you against one another.
Okay.
It's really good. But yeah, maybe I should find a different part of that song.
No, it's catchy. I don't know. I just hadn't listened to it before.
You should listen to him. He's really good, actually.
Have we played him? Because I know there have been a couple times that. Okay. Yeah. I bet I'm familiar with him then. The border numbers have shown to be a tremendous success. The border crossings are at their lowest that they have been in ever recording things, and the Pentagon has deployed roughly 3,000 active duty troops to bolster security at the southern border of the United States. A Stryker Brigade combat team, including its Stryker vehicles, set to arrive at the southern border in the coming weeks, according to the Defense Department. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered the troops at the border to reinforce and expand current border security operations to seal the border and protect the territorial integrity of the United States, a defense spokesman said. Their deployment underscores the department's unwavering dedication to working alongside the Department of Homeland Security to secure our southern border and maintain the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and security of the United States under President Trump's leadership, defense spokesman Sean Parnell said in a statement. Hegseth approved the order directing the Stryker team to the border on Friday. According to the Washington Post, the Stryker team will be bolstered by troops that specialize in engineering, intelligence, and public affairs. The Trump administration taking a more aggressive stance towards policing immigration at the southern border and combating the influence of drug cartels on the Mexican side. In a January 31st phone call between Hegseth and Mexican officials, the defense secretary warned that the United States may take unilateral military action to deal with the cartels unless the Mexican government cracks down on the criminal organizations. Mexican officials interpreted the phone call as a warning that the U.S. military might start operating on Mexican soil to combat the drug cartels, a move that Mexican officials have said would undermine Mexican sovereignty. I think the drug cartels are doing that. Hegseth, in a post on Saturday, quote, "We are dead serious about 100% operational control of the southern border," which is something that we haven't had in quite some time. Notice all of these improvements. The 94 to 96% drop in individuals trying to cross into the country illegally did not take one single piece of legislation from Congress. Did not take any additional funding. Let's not forget, this is what we were told over and over again leading up to the presidential election, that the reason there was lack of any border security is because the funding wasn't given to them by Congress, that being the White House. And that's because Donald Trump interfered because he didn't want the border to really be secured. Now, of course, we knew that was no border security bill. All it did was further fund the increase of people to get into this country illegally. But all that aside, you think about the 4 years that we went through, the chaos at the border, the attempt by the administration, in many instances successfully so, of blocking people from even seeing what was going on. At one point, there was a battle back and forth between Fox News and the Biden administration because Fox News was flying drones over the area so the American people could see the massive number of illegals coming into this country illegally and, in what some might consider to be a threat to the free press, did everything they could to prevent Fox News from filming those visuals and then reporting on them to the American people. All of the fakery, had the one time that Biden went down to the border and they cleaned up the streets. They got all the illegals out of there. So look at what a wonderful job we're doing. The weeping and gnashing of teeth down at the border of the Ocasio-Cortezes, the false claims that, during the first Trump years that, of course, Trump was forcing these people to drink out of toilets. all of the theatrics, whether it was to demonize Trump's first 4 years or to cover up the 4 years of the Biden administration. I saw polling that showed it was like 70-some% of Democrats did not believe that the border problems that we suffered under the Biden administration were deliberate. That the vast majority of Democrats, it was just incompetence. Biden, when he was running on that debate stage, said, if I'm elected president, all of you people who are turned away at the border under the Trump administration, you come back. It not only was deliberate, it was announced as deliberate. And then once they realized that their reelection chances were being gravely damaged because of what they had done at the southern border, they tried to pretend that it was all because Republicans would not give them the funding that was necessary. And what has Trump shown just in, 5 weeks? It didn't take legislation, did not take Congress, it did not take bipartisanship, and it didn't take any additional funding. It's amazing how that works, isn't it? Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Bradford Light, Pineapple Life Coach, 2 of the Kansas Territory Brewing Company offerings that you can get at area price cutters and some area Macadoodles. The Pineapple Life Coach, as perhaps the weather starts to get a little more spring-like and gets you in the mood for more tropical seasons and gets you just to thinking about it's going to be nice to get out there again and just enjoy the fresh air. Pineapple Life Coach may be for you. But if you like the standard go-to tailored for the hardworking men and women who appreciate reliable, easy drinking experience, then Bradford Light may be for you. Pick them both up. Try them both out. Again, that you can find at area price cutters and some area Macadoodles, Bradford Light, and Pineapple Life Coach. Question on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Why don't the Republicans ask for a transcript of the meeting the Democrats had with Zelensky prior to meeting with Trump and Vance? I don't know if transcripts are kept of those meetings, to be honest with you. We know because of their own postings what the attempt was, and it was, at least for the time being, successful, and that was to get Zelensky to reject the peace deal. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy posted about it. revealing that he met with Zelensky just under an hour before he went to the White House and blew the whole thing up. I mean, I've just never seen anything like it. You can dislike Trump. You can have Trump derangement syndrome. But as these steps are being taken and all of our European allies are on the same page, and we're just moving closer and closer to it becoming realistic that this thing could come to a close, and you have Democrats openly acknowledging that they sabotaged it, that they convinced Zelensky that this is a fake peace deal, you should reject it. As I mentioned before, this isn't like we're talking about a spending bill or an issue of tax cuts. These are real people's lives. They own this thing now, as far as I'm concerned. Speaking of tax legislation, Bernie Sanders, in a previous segment, played audio of him claiming that Republicans are going to steal food from kids and going to steal medicine from elderly people, all to give tax cuts to their rich trillionaire friends. It is the same old, tired, sad song. But there is something important to remember here. These are the discussion of tax cuts, of extending the tax cuts, are tax cuts that you and I got as Americans. Most middle-class Americans benefited from the tax cuts. So unless... And let's not forget for the servers out there. Is Bernie Sanders claiming that every server out there that Trump is looking to eliminate taxes for is some sort of billionaire? Is that the position that the Democrats want to take, that you are uber rich, you are upper class now if you are a server in the service industry in this country, according to the Democrats? I think that's something that should be remembered. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I will talk with you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.